It's now time to take a look at news stories making headlines around the globe. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu yesterday said his government would continue to take difficult decisions for the Nigerian people, despite the short-term pains that often come with such choices. Speaking at a meeting with Prime Minister Mark Rutte of the Netherlands in The Hague, Tinubu said Nigeria had seen the worst of storms, yet he was not afraid of the consequences of his actions since they were in the best long-term interest of the people. The president disclosed that Nigeria was well positioned to power the clean energy future of Europe and the world with its high-grade lithium deposits. Tinubu said Nigeria sought robust, balanced, and mutually beneficial partnerships that would bring about value addition in areas like solid minerals. Some ministers accompanying the president on the trip spoke on the expectations from the business forum.
It's important that we align but also partner with countries like Netherlands. So one of the two things that we've identified in our earlier meetings this morning is actually partnership around talent, right, where the Netherlands has a program that is focused on providing scholarship opportunities for young people in specific sectors, especially in the technological space. So we're looking to work together in that space. As you also are probably aware, Nigeria is prioritizing artificial intelligence, and Netherlands has significant interest in ethics when it comes to AI, as we go on the drive to use artificial intelligence to drive productivity in our country.
They use knowledge and technology to achieve that, because when you look at the land and the population, they don't have those figures to match what we see in terms of agri-export. We in Nigeria will have the available land, but our most problem is that the land is shrinking because we have a huge bulging population. There's habitation encroaching on farmlands. So what we need is increasing yield per space. So increasing yield, and that's technology. Good seeds, good fertilization, good cultivation, and good harvest. And that is, I think, where we can now derive the knowledge and transfer knowledge from Netherlands to the Nigerian space.
So what we're offering these companies is the ability to domesticate technology after transferring it and also commercializing it. As you know, Naseni has over 2,000 engineers and scientists, and one of the key things that any company wants to do is to have a product market fit whenever they come into a country, and they can leverage on our infrastructure to be able to achieve that. And some of them will look forward to working with them on our national brand projects, which is one of top key projects for Mr. President.
Our Chief Marketing Officer, Chief Diplomatic Officer, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, is in the Netherlands and is doing what he has gone there to do, market Nigeria as the investment destination of choice. Your take on this story, Dr. Bati?
Well, I've always made the point on this program that the President of Nigeria is the Chief Foreign Policy Officer, is the Chief Marketing Officer of Nigeria. And that is what, President Tinubu is doing on this trip to the Netherlands, where, there's a Nigeria-Netherlands Business Forum. And apart from that Nigeria-Netherlands Business Forum, he has also met with the Prime Minister of the Netherlands, Mark Rutte, who is on his way out, more or less. But in any case, what we're talking about here is international diplomacy. And I think that some of the statements that have been credited to President Tinubu in the reports will seem to be justifiable, consistent with his position as a Chief Marketing Officer of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. What is he saying? He says, well, his government will continue to take very difficult decisions, which may bring pain, but those difficult decisions are in the best overall interest of the average Nigerian. And what are some of those decisions he has taken, which was eventually referenced by Mark Rutte? Removal of a subsidy, for example. That's one example. And then some of the monetary policy projections that have been taken. So he went to the Netherlands to sell Nigeria. That's his job. That's why he has been elected. He says he will take difficult decisions. That's governance. That's leadership. Countries of the world take difficult decisions to move their people forward. What the Nigerian people will expect is that these difficult decisions that are taken by the Tinubu administration will be decisions that will move them forward. That they will not be decisions that will serve selfish interests. That they will not be decisions that will inflict pain on the average Nigerian, but that there will be decisions that will be for the mutual benefit of the entire collectivity. So when he talks about long-term interests, he's also probably talking about the sacrifice that his administration asks Nigerians to make, which is about making sacrifice. The Nigerian people are making sacrifice. Our leaders making sacrifice. So putting that message up there within the international community is something that we can interrogate further. However, let's go to international diplomacy, which is the main subject. He told his Dutch audience that Nigeria is doing a lot in terms of providing an enabling business environment. What have they done? Interest rate has been increased to make FPIs, foreign portfolio investments possible. He talked in terms of the fact that Nigeria has a youthful population, which is a fact. I'm sure that the people know that. And that this youthful population has been provided with student loans. He also talked about how the Naira has moved from being a worst performing currency to best performing currency. He talked about the repatriation of funds, which is something that is of interest to the international community. That was his own way of reassuring the Dutch community that, look, Nigeria, if I use the word paradise, that Nigeria is the paradise where you should come and invest. So President Tinubu as a salesman, he even told them that it's not only oil that we have in Nigeria, that we also have lithium, and that there is great opportunity in the non-oil sector. Well, I hope the president knows the literature about the lithium and its problematic, situationing in global, politics of international trade. But I don't want to go into that. I don't want to bore you this morning. So, however, I think the president struck all the right notes. And Mark Rutte responded very well by saying, oh, you have done very well in terms of some of the reforms. He gave a diplomatic response. All that talk about Nigeria is managing democracy well, Nigeria, President Tinubu is providing solid leadership in ECOWAS. He was just reading from a script. However, I hope that the Nigerian delegation to the Netherlands realize one fact. That Mark Rutte that President Tinubu met with, when President Jonathan met him, I was part of the delegation. Well, it was part of my job to do the advanced part. I will have sent a team. My boys will have been on the ground, and I will arrive and I will take charge of the media aspect of it. When we went to visit him at this same location, do you know that the Prime Minister arrived on a bicycle? We didn't know that the Prime Minister had arrived. The man came on top of a bicycle. They said he was already there. We were running up and down looking for the Prime Minister of the Netherlands. But we went there with a convoy, of course. We are Nigerians. And when the man came, he alighted from his bicycle. He was telling us about Nigerians in the Netherlands. He said he had just left a class.
Yes.
He was teaching. He said, look, I just left the class, and one of my students asked me, my president is coming to see you. Okay, the rest of that, I don't need to go into the details. Can you imagine a whole prime minister controlling an economy that is one of the most robust in Europe riding a bicycle. So as President Tinubu is there, looking for opportunities, selling Nigeria, there are also lessons that President Tinubu and our delegation can learn. All these people become ministers in Nigeria and they become big men. They will stay inside vehicles. You won't even see their faces. They will try to chase you off the streets. But we haven't seen this. You leave office, you become an ordinary man. You come and join us here as an ordinary man. Abi?
Yes.
Well, I didn't use any convoy. You
didn't ride a bicycle, Dr. Mati.
No, I didn't use anything. But I'm a normal Nigerian. Nigerians must start by showing the example that leadership is what matters. When we meet with these foreign persons, they look at you and they say, well, fine. They will say all the normal things that Macruth has said. He's a young man, by the way, who will soon leave the office and he will return to a normal life. So we must look at those cultural, value-oriented, value-addictive issues. And President Tinubu saying we have lithium in Nigeria. Well, I hope we have the safeguards in place, because lithium now, with artificial intelligence becoming the next locomotive for the future. You have lithium, they come in. Do we have the right head to deal with the politics involved in the geopolitics of the future?
All right. Well, I'm going to start off with what Dr. Bati said before I get into the conversation that happened in the Netherlands, in Hague in the Netherlands. And that is the strength of leadership, or the type of leadership, and the fact that from his eyewitness, he saw the Prime Minister of the Netherlands approach or come in a bicycle and has a part-time job lecturing. And, we had this conversation for a while now about perhaps the members of the House being on a part-time basis so that they have some work that they are doing whilst they are handling the matter of legislation. If the Prime Minister of the Netherlands can have a part-time job, perhaps it's important for us to see that it is possible for our legislators to have a part-time job as well, so that people do not become career politicians and then it becomes a do-or-die affair, making it that the idea or the sense of leadership, the spirit of leadership in transforming the lives of people and the nation and the economy is not forefront, but how to better their lives, because they don't have any other option. If the Prime Minister of Netherlands leaves, he will just go back to his classroom, which he never left anyway, to continue lecturing. So the power of leadership, especially when we see economies where this has worked. We can talk about the Nigerian dynamic being different, but the truth is that it is possible to do that. In places where politics is not the only option, you would see leaders who are better equipped perhaps to lead the people, because it is not a do or die affair. And just to raise that point that it is possible, we've seen examples around the world. Now let's talk about President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's visit. I would like to center in on one thing, which is his marketing of the fact that one of the strengths of Nigeria as a nation is that we have a youth population. In fact, it mentioned that 70% of the Nigerian population is made up of under 30-year-olds. And he was marketing, and to be honest, it should and ought to be an investment haven just for that fact. The fact that, number one, our population numbers, and number two, that we have a vibrant economy of young people, and guess what, young people who are great thinkers. We talk about the creativity of the Nigerian youth. We talk about how the Nigerian youth can turn anything you find anywhere where you put a Nigerian youth, and the place literally transforms. Unfortunately, over the years, the young people in Nigeria have not been given the opportunity or environment to thrive and really maximize the talents and the skills that they have, a myriad of issues. And I point this out because President Bola Ahmed Tinubu presented it on the table, amongst the other things, lithium and others, as one of the big selling points of the nation that is called Nigeria. There are many studies that have been done about how to harness a youth population for the benefit of the economy of a nation. And I'll just highlight a few things. And maybe this administration can work further to deepen the talent and the skills and the benefits of having a youth population. We saw the Minister of Communications and Digital Economy talking about how important the young population would be for the future of AI and tech in Nigeria, and that's the future in many parts of the world. The first thing I'll talk about in terms of providing opportunities for young people in Nigeria, of course, is ensuring and enabling young people to take part in to participate in political matters in Nigeria. Thank God for the Not Too Young to Wrong bill. That has changed the game in many instances. But for this administration, what the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu administration can do in this regard is to have a lot of young people represented in his government. We can see that from the appointment of the Minister for Digital Economy. We've seen the great work he's doing, that's Bosun Tijani. We can see that with the ministry, with other ministries where he's appointed young people. But there are also young minds, committees, groups, think tanks where he can bring young people or marry the experience and the knowledge and the wisdom of the older ones and the youth, the vibrancy and the creativity of young people to create excellence in our nation. So political participation and not relegating young people to the background. The next is agriculture. Usually when we talk about agriculture, and this administration has been very big about promoting agriculture, we usually look at rural dwellers. But we've seen the change, we've seen the face of that change in recent times. We've seen more young entrepreneurs take interest in agriculture, and just imagine how that sector can be revitalized once we have that injection of youth, the vitality of youth and the creativity of the young in terms of not just going back to doing things the way it was done before, but this conversation we've had for a very long time around using technology to amplify agriculture and to, really transform that sector in Nigeria. More young people can be used to show up that industry. The next thing I'd like to talk about is entrepreneurship. If you look at entrepreneurs, we have about 50% of business owners as entrepreneurs who are mainly young people. Again, providing that enabling environment. The young people are ready. What this administration can do is to provide opportunities for them to thrive. Yes, it talked about the student loan. That's a good one for his administration, but again, it hasn't yet kicked off. So until it is implemented, we can then begin to judge how successful it is or how much impact it's had, because education is the last thing I was going to talk about. But if we're going to look at education, let's catch them young. Beyond our tertiary institutions, let's take a look at our basic education. Let's look at how, the primary education, because if the first few years of the young are not captured properly, it doesn't matter what you do later on. If the foundation be faulty, you can't really build on that. So these are some of the things that this administration can begin to do before we go out to market the fact that, yes, we have a population. But if you have something and you're not maximizing that thing, then it could as well just go to waste. We have a young population in Nigeria willing, ready, eager to take on the world. Let the world not come into our nation, harvest the best of our young people, and take advantage of what we ought to maximize here as a nation. I'll move on to our next story. The Naira weakened against the dollar across the official and parallel markets yesterday, manifesting 4 consecutive days of losses. The Naira settled at 1,309 Naira and 81 kobo to the dollar at the Nigerian Autonomous Foreign Exchange Market window yesterday, representing a 1 Naira 36 kobo decline compared to 1,308 Naira and 52 kobo to a dollar on Wednesday. Similarly, at the parallel markets, the Naira plunged by 150 Naira when it closed at 1,450 Naira to a dollar, compared to 1,300 Naira to a dollar the previous day, marking one of its biggest losses in a single day in recent times. However, daily turnover rose significantly by 60.99% to $318.08 million, compared to Wednesday's $197.54 million. The highest spot rate stood at 1,435 Naira, with the lowest spot rate recorded at 1,100 Naira. Dr. Bati, we've talked about this a number of times in terms of the gains on the Naira, can it be sustained? And we're seeing perhaps the result in terms of the volatility. But I'd like to get your take on this story this morning.
Okay. The chairman of the Central Bank of Nigeria was at the spring meetings of the IMF and the World Bank, and he participated in a very important forum. And what the governor of the central bank said on that occasion was that the Nigerian currency had moved from being the worst performing currency in the world to, perhaps the strongest currency in the world. And he used the opportunity of his presence at that World Bank meeting to tout, advertise, promote the achievements in terms of the monetary policy projections of the Central Bank of Nigeria under his leadership. And one of the things he said, of course, was how the volatility of the Naira was being addressed and how the foreign exchange market had improved and how under his watch liquidity has been improved within the market. Yes, I said at the time, it's not more than a week ago, that we should give Yemi Cardoso, CBN governor of Nigeria, the benefit of the doubt. But that, however, the test of all the monetary policy moves will depend on how this is sustainable. Now, what we're being told this morning now is that, look, the Naira now is weakening against the dollar. And that the achievement of a 1,100 Naira to the dollar range has weakened further to about 1,400 in the parallel market. Let's just use that example. So, is the CBN sustaining it? What the experts, the people who have PhD in economics, what they have said is that, look, what the CBN has done is just that it has recorded gains in terms of certain moves. One, providing liquidity for the BDCs, that's the Bureau de Change. The effort that they got, the input, the injection that they got from Afrexim Bank of $3.3 billion, which they used to shore up the Naira. Even if Yemi Cardoso says they are not defending the Naira and that whatever interventions they may have done was temporary. They point also to the fact that the interest rate having been increased also encourage foreign portfolio investors, FPIs. But those FPIs, these are portfolio investors. They will take out their money. And when they take out their money, they will request Forex. When they request Forex, we'll begin to see that what the CBN has done so far is just a temporary intervention. In other words, the main challenge is in the area of sustainability of the intervention. There's been some jubilation, there's been some masturbation on the part of the CBN, chest beating, monkey-like, baboon-like, chest beating. But can you sustain it? Because it's when you sustain it that you have the effect within the larger economy. So this is where we are. And what are the experts saying? They are saying that what you need to do, basically, which the Nigerian government has not done, is to address the fundamentals. And what are the fundamentals? What I can isolate from that is about productivity. That there must be productivity in terms of the oil exports, oil production. We can't even meet our quota. We have been told that the Warri refinery is ready. When is the Port Harcourt refinery going to be ready? We have been reporting on stories about the Dangote refinery, 650,000 barrels per day capacity that we have been talking about. Okay, where is the other, promise about Warri refinery, about Port Harcourt refinery, and the other, artisanal refineries that are under the rubric of government intervention. So these are the issues. Non-oil export. President Tinubu just went to the Netherlands to boast about lithium, resources that we have in Nigeria, to boast about non-oil resources that we have in Nigeria. Okay, what have you put in place in terms of trade policy, in terms of industrial policy, to take advantage of all of this? So I think that the lesson here is that, look, to save the Naira, there are more fundamental issues that will have to be addressed. Most recently, Professor Segun Ajibola, who was on this program, reminded us that the fundamentals have not been addressed. So the so-called speculators will continue to watch and say, okay, leave government alone now. Let them do what they say they are doing. The same Naira is now accustomed to a yo-yoing culture. It goes up, it goes down, it goes up and goes down. So it is when you are able to read the market that you're able to do it. But that can be addressed by looking at the fundamentals. Oil production. At a time when there is crisis in the Middle East, and we see that, you know, the spot price of oil is going up. At a time when there are possibilities, as President Tinubu himself has identified, with lithium and other non-oil exports. So, look, what the Tinubu government needs to do is to sort of move away from rhetoric, talk, and act, and ensure that when they act, they stay with that action. And that will require a lot of intelligence. By intelligence here, I just mean basic intelligence, intelligent people. I don't mean security intelligence, just basic intelligence. People who are intelligent enough to focus on the right issues, and people who are intelligent enough to understand the right issues and to follow up with the machinery of state power, of state capability. That is what I think we need. And talking about security, well, some other people may say security is part of it. If we can ramp up agricultural production, yeah, maybe that will help. If we provide security and allow people to go to the farms, but it will still require basic intelligence to be able to take advantage of it instead of these ceremonial, event-based things that we do. We can fix it, as President Tinubu continues to tell us. But when they fix it, we will see it.
All right, well, I think this news just goes to show that whilst there's been a lot of intervention in this area, as we've seen from the CBN governor, we've also seen that these interventions are not enough to sustain the gains that the Naira has made against the dollar in recent times. And as Dr. Bati already said, we've had a series of interviews speaking to economists, analysts, discussing it on this table itself, and where we've talked about the fact that if, like you mentioned, the fundamentals are not addressed, then irrespective of what is being done in terms of intervention from the CBN, it would only be a short-term gain. And I think that's unfortunately what we're seeing this morning in terms of the for the weakening of the Naira. There's still hope, and what we're looking forward to seeing is that alongside the monetary policy, as we have spoken about, is also a tight fiscal policy as well. Beyond the, we talked about productivity, oil, the stolen crude oil, the fact that we ought to shore production to address insecurity in that area, oil bunkering, oil theft, so that we are able to meet our quota and generate more revenue in the much needed FX. We also talk about when we produce locally, also encouraging us to lessen the pressure on FX by buying the Naira, as that popular slogan goes, to grow the Naira, to strengthen the Naira. This administration has tried to make efforts in that way. We talk about how some of the things that are imported, even right from government, there are official vehicles, certain things that they use can be used by, and this sets a good example for the Nigerian people by patronizing local manufacturers, locally made goods, so that we reduce our dependence on FX. We had the conversation just this week where we're talking about the fact that we have a dollarized economy where almost every commodity has some dollar in it. And we must demystify the dollar in every commodity in Nigeria. So beyond that is also the fact that we're talking about the local refineries. Dangote Refinery was said to have chaired that coming on board to hopefully help to increase local production so that it also again reduces pressure on the FX, and we might experience some gain in the Naira. But these are some of the things that have to be sorted out in the immediate. We can celebrate the early gains, but if the long-term fundamentals are not addressed, then we'll continue to see this, the weakening of the Naira. Finally, I'll just say this in wrapping up. The truth is that we have talked about a number of times the Naira this, the Naira that, the dollar, the gains in the Naira and the dollar. But it's important, as I mentioned, to create an enabling environment to ensure that this works. Yes, going back to the previous story where we looked at the president saying to the Prime Minister of Netherlands that he has had to make some tough decisions which he didn't regret because they were bringing gains, they were having gains. But if we have to endure tough decisions, and we don't see the gains of those tough decisions, that's where there will be a lot of problem. And that's why a lot of people are groaning and complaining about. It's not about the tough decisions being taken. It's the fact that there's no appreciable impact on the man on the street in terms of the cost of goods, in terms of cost of transportation. It looks like they're making difficult decisions, which they've said is for a long-term good. But unfortunately, people do not see that. It's a gain today, a loss tomorrow. And so it's discouraging, and it makes it difficult for people to trust in the ability of this government to take us out of the economic impasse that we currently face in the nation. Looking forward to what the CBN governor's response to this would be in terms of what the next steps to defend our naira further or to strengthen our naira further. Other news making the rounds this morning. The Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, NNPC, yesterday signed a contract with African Refinery Port Harcourt Limited to build a 100,000 barrels per day refinery within the Port Harcourt Refinery and Petrochemical Complex in Rivers State. More than 100 prisoners have escaped from Suleja prison in Nigeria after heavy rain damaged part of the facility where they were housed, as well as the perimeter fence. On the foreign scene, the New York Court of Appeals has overturned the sex crimes conviction against Harvey Weinstein, the powerful Hollywood producer whose downfall stood as a symbol of the Me Too movement, and ordered a new trial. TikTok's Chinese parent company, ByteDance, says it has no intention of selling the business after the US passed a law to force it to sell the hugely popular video app or be banned in America. And that's it on the news at this time.